establishing queenside space advantage. This opening gambit immediately challenges central control. Developing knights early offers flexibility, preparing for central pawn pushes or flank attacks. Developing a knight here aims to control central squares and prepare further kingside expansion. Embracing the fianchetto immediately prepares a robust kingside defense and pawn chain, aiming for a flexible pawn structure. Asserting central control, this pawn thrust immediately opens avenues for white's pieces and challenges black's flank development. Solidifying the center and preparing for bishop development, this pawn push carves out essential central space and supports an eventual e5 push. Solidifying the center, white builds a strong pawn chain and prepares to unleash an assault. Fianchettoing the bishop here solidifies black's kingside control and prepares for potential pawn breaks, a classic response to white's central pawn presence. Solidifying the center with f3 creates a robust pawn chain, though it slightly hampers development by blocking the kingside knight. Securing the monarch is paramount now, allowing for more active central play and piece development. Targeting black's fianchettoed bishop creates immediate pawn structure vulnerabilities and strains coordination on the kingside. Solidifying the center's pawn structure, black prepares for a potential queenside expansion and reinforces the d6 pawn's defense. Securing the e4 pawn and preparing kingside development, this offers flexibility without overcommitting the queen immediately. Proactively contesting the queenside space now prevents white's desired expansion with b4, offering a subtle pawn break opportunity. Targeting the bishop's diagonal opens avenues for queenside expansion, preparing a pawn storm. Unlocking the queenside, black launches a pawn storm aiming to disrupt white's central control and potentially create an outpost. Developing the knight to a more flexible square, preparing for either a kingside attack or supporting central expansion. Challenging the center's pawn structure immediately, aiming to open lines and exploit white's somewhat passive setup. Solidifying central space now, this pawn advance strategically cramps black's kingside counterplay and prepares further queenside expansion. Unsettling the pawn chain, black opens a critical diagonal for the bishop and prepares to contest the d-file. Reclaiming the pawn solidifies white's central pawn mass, inviting a potential kingside assault or a gradual queenside expansion. Challenging the bishop's placement disrupts white's development and opens lines for potential counterplay on the kingside. Sacrificing material to expose the enemy king's sanctuary, a bold attempt to shatter black's defensive shield. Embracing chaos, black sacrifices material, hoping to shatter white's central control and expose the king. Recapturing the pawn restores material balance, but allows black's pieces to achieve excellent central control. Unleashing a calculated swarm, black ignites a dazzling mating threat on the kingside, forcing white's response. Shielding the king from the immediate queen threat, this pawn advance creates a safe haven, but at the cost of weakening the kingside structure. Capturing the pawn exposes the black king to immediate tactical threats from white's knights and queen, creating a dangerous central rift. White exchanges queens, simplifying into an endgame where black's doubled pawns become a significant long-term weakness. Trading off a key attacking piece after the exchange opens diagonals for your remaining bishops, potentially creating tactical opportunities. Securing the king's safety, the monarch ventures forth from its corner, preparing to join the central fray and potentially contest open lines. Consolidating the rook to the open file establishes a critical presence, preparing for potential d-file incursions. Pushing the g-pawn loosens your king's pawn shield considerably, potentially exposing it to future attacks. Opening the file for the rook, this bishop finally finds a more active diagonal after the earlier sacrifices. Opening the central file for rook entry, white aims to exploit the weakened king position and pressure black's uncastled monarch. Opening up the c-file for rook activity is a shrewd positional concession, aiming to activate the bishop pair. Reclaiming the bishop stabilizes the center and prepares to contest the d-file. Reclaiming that piece is paramount. Now focus on developing the remaining pieces and coordinating pressure on the queen side. Reclaiming the exchange opens a clear path to asserting pressure on the king side. Initiating contact on the queen side, this knight emerges to challenge white's central grip and explore the d4 square, solidifying the queenside pawn structure and preventing any immediate queenside expansion by black. Bolstering the knight's mobility, this piece now eyes central squares and potential outposts. This capture opens up the d-file, creating immediate pressure on black's isolated pawns. Reclaiming material is paramount. Now focus on activating your remaining pieces and disrupting white's central control. Unlocking the d-file, this capture initiates a strategic battle for central dominance and piece activity. The rook now eyes the open d-file, threatening disruption in this simplified arena. Reclaiming central influence, the knight solidifies white's queenside pawn structure and prepares for endgame operations. Reclaiming the central pawn with the knight opens lines and creates opportunities for counterplay. Seeking to exploit the open kingside and advance his pawns for a decisive attack. Seizing control of the open files now promises to be black's best path to activity. Initiating a bold pawn push to seize more of the queenside territory. Stepping back to safety, the bishop repositions, aiming to re-establish passive defense and potentially regroup for future play. Securing the c-file offers crucial control, anticipating future rook activity and pressure on the queen side. Reactivating the knight to d4 reasserts control over key central squares and prepares a more active defense. This repositioning clears the dangerous c-file, aiming to solidify white's queenside pawn structure and prepare for potential endgame skirmishes. Reclaiming the initiative, this maneuver reactivates the rook, eyeing potential imbalances in the newly opened central files. Reclaiming the initiative, this knight repositions for central influence and potential kingside harassment. Opening the position this drastically could be risky, but it aims to activate the pieces and challenge the center. Exploiting open diagonals, white pries open the kingside, seeking to expose black's royal presence to the elements. Repositioning the knight to d4 was a mistake. This knight on b5 offers little and might soon be vulnerable. This repositioning aims to wrestle control of the queenside flank from black's rook and potentially exploit the exposed b-pawn. Reclaiming central space and preparing to challenge the enemy's isolated pawn. Opening the queenside to activate the rook's mobility provides some counterplay. Sensing the open c-file's pressure, the knight retreats to a less exposed diagonal, aiming to participate in central play once more. Opening the long diagonal towards the black king with a decisive check. Relocating the king to the 7th rank effectively shores up the queenside and prepares for endgame struggles where pawn structure will be paramount. Expanding control along the queenside aims to liberate the knight and pose a queenside pawn threat. Recapturing the rook on the 7th rank solidifies white's control over that crucial open file, restricting black's counterplay. The rook's repositioning creates a significant spatial squeeze, limiting black's counterplay dramatically.